Hey guys, welcome to a Rainbow Loom tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make Charmeleon, the Pokemon, and that is him in the middle, along with Charmander and Charizard, who all move to the side so you can get a better look at him. Yeah, he's really well made. I really like what I did with this one. And that's his bottom, that's the top of his head. From all sides, so you're going to need stuffing, well, some sort of stuffing, your loom, your hook, and red bands, obviously, blue bands, white bands, yellow bands, orange bands, and that's it. Okay, so we're going to start out by making the mouth or snout of Charmeleon. So we're going to take 2 red bands, followed by 2 more red bands, if that'll focus, and then just put them on there, and then 1 red capping band wrapped around the end peg 3 times, and then you're just going to put everything over, and that'll be the snout. So I dropped one there, and there we go. And yeah, so just take that off. It should stay put if you just leave it. That's what I like to do. I just leave it there. Okay, so now we're going to make the arms. So we're going to take 2 red bands, followed by 2 more red bands, followed by 2 more red bands, and then 1 white capping band wrapped around the end peg 3 times. So I'm going to make the other arm off screen, so you can just pause the video or whatever. So there we go, putting everything onto itself, and gonna take it off the loom. And like I said, it should stay if you just put it down. So there's one little arm. Now I'll make the next one. Okay, so I've made the other arm, and now we're going to make the legs, and we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to take 3 red bands this time, followed by 3 more red bands, followed by 3 more red bands, and then 2 white bands for the cap, and we're going to wrap those 2 around it 3 times. So just be really careful when you're sort of building this. And I actually forgot to start out with 2 red bands, so if you haven't already done it, like made the leg, you're going to want to start out with 2 red bands and then do the 3 red bands times 3. So I'm just going to realize that and then add the 2 red bands. So I'm actually doing narration over what I've already done. What you're seeing is my first time ever making this, because I don't mess up as much the first time as the other times. So that's why I'm just showing this, and it turned out okay, so I'm okay with showing it. So just realize that when I make mistakes. So I've made the other leg. You can pause the video. And now I think we're going to make the horn. He has a horn on his head, so it's exactly the same as the arm, I believe, and except the ending band is red. So 2 bands each time instead of 3. We're not going to be using 3 at a time ever again for this video. I just wanted to use 3 to make it a little thicker because his legs are pretty thick, but I didn't want to make them as thick as I've made Charizard's legs, because then there wouldn't be a difference between him and Charizard. So that's the horn. And if you give me a moment, because I don't know quite what I'm making right now. Oh, now we're making the tail. Okay, so I lied. We are going to use 3 at a time again. So you start off with 2 this time, and then use 3, followed by 3, followed by 3. followed by 3. And then 3 put diagonally though. Actually 2, not 3. So 2 diagonally. And then 2 orange bands branching off from that one that's diagonal. And then 2 yellow bands times 2, sort of connecting the flame on the end of the tail. And then 1 yellow cap band wrapped around the ending peg 3 times. And then we'll just build that. And that'll be our tail. And then I think all we have to make after this are the eyes. And those are always simple. So just gonna put everything together and just be careful that you are getting all of the bands each time, because I always mess up on that. And I'm just going really slowly here just to make sure I'm doing everything right. So yeah, I don't really have much to say in between me doing things like this. So I guess I'll just talk about the future of my channel. Even though I have no subscribers, hardly any views, hardly any watch time, I'm going to continue making videos like this in hope of being discovered. And I'll try to do a bunch of Pokemon Rainbow Loom stuff. I'll continue with my Minecraft Let's Plays, because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy playing Minecraft and I enjoy Rainbow Looming. So I was just fixing everything. Okay, so I got 2 blue bands and 2 white bands, and that's all you'll need. So you'll wrap the white band around your hook 3 times, and then take a blue band and wrap it around the hook 3 times as well. And I missed on that last one. And then you're going to take 2 red bands and slide them all onto there. Like so. And then you just take it off and it should stay. Okay, so I made the other eye off screen, and now I've changed my loom so it looks like that. So go ahead, pause the video, change your loom so it looks like that, as I just said. And now I'm sort of making a flowery shape, taking 2 red bands each time and branching them out from that one peg, so that I have sort of the base of a pentagon. Not really base, more like skeleton. So I had to go get more red bands. And you're going to want to take a cap band and wrap it around the middle peg 3 times, like always. And then you're going to fold everything onto itself, like always, from the middle. And it's a little bit tricky because not everything's facing the right direction, quote unquote right. But it's easy once you get the hang of it. Just be careful, like always. I'm saying like always a lot. Okay. So now you have more of a skeleton of a pentagon. And pushing everything down. You should always push everything down after you finish a row or while you're working on a row. So now I'm going to put the horn on. So I'm taking all of the bands from the horn, putting them onto my hook, and then I'm going to put them all onto that one peg and slide them through, and make sure the horn is facing down because I want the horn to stick up out of his head. Now I was just trying to get everything onto that one peg again. So I'm just making sure it's facing down so everything's right. Pushing it down a little bit. Okay, so now I'm just going to do a row of red with nothing special. Just using 2 bands each time so that it's thick, because if you use 1 band, it works, but it's really just, it doesn't feel well made. Because when you use 2 bands, it feels more sturdy, feels like it's going to survive longer. Because when you use 1 band, if one of the bands breaks at any point, then you're done. There's nothing you can do about that. So we're just going to fold everything onto itself, and that'll be the first row. And pushing everything down, and now you sort of have a little web slash flower thing. So now we're going to move the bands from that peg that was sort of in the center to a peg on the side, and we're going to take out that center piece of our loom and reposition it so that there is no like center peg, and putting it in the right place so that they're staggered. I suppose you could do it unstaggered too, but I didn't think of that until just now, and I had it on the wrong way, and that wouldn't have worked out very well. I mean, it could have worked out. I probably should have done that, but whatever you want. So I put that back on, pushing everything down. You know, I don't want anything to fall off. So we're going to put on the eyes this turn. I always say that. Okay. I mean round. Wait. Row. Okay. We're going to put on the eyes this row. I'm used to playing Pokemon, and it's like, which turn is it? Stuff like that. So yeah. So I'm putting the blue facing to the left because the right side is the back of the head, and I want the blue facing the front of the head. Yeah. So just going to complete the circle with 2 red bands each time, like so. And then on the next row, we're going to put the mouth on. So just putting everything up and over. And then that center row starts to get really flimsy, so you have to make sure it's being held down. And I think I messed up there, but I fixed it. And taking the bottom 4 each time, like sometimes I would take 2 instead of 4, so you'll see later on that I get sort of confused. But it worked out. So there's the mouth, and we're going to put that right in the front and center of his face. And one of the bands fell out, but that's an easy fix. You just take your hook through the whatever it is you're putting on, and then you grab it from one side, hook it onto that peg, and hook it onto the other peg, and it works out. So I was getting some more red bands, and these red bands were a slightly different color and a different, they had a different feel to them because the ones I was using before were really old. So it takes me a while to get used to that, but I think you can hardly tell now that it's done. You can tell that they're a different color. You can hardly tell. I think it looks okay. But if you have all of the same color, then it should be fine. So we just did a regular row because he needs somewhat of a neck. And I believe we do 2 just rows of red. So my camera's going to be going in and out of focus sometimes. It's just because it's cheap. But I feel like all cameras do that, no matter how cheap they are. So he's starting to get some depth to him, which is good. And there's the mouth. Gonna pull that out a little bit to give it some, I don't know, just to make it stand out. So we're just gonna do another row of red because there's not much to put on left. There's just the legs, the arms, and the tail. So at times in the video, it's going to skip a row like that I already did off camera. So I'll tell you when that is. so you can pause it and do it yourself. So gonna grab the bottom 4 and pull them over, like always. And pushing everything down, and he's really starting to get some depth. You can see his head and his little horn. So I was sort of adjusting all that. So I was getting more reds. And I believe this is just another row. So this is the second row of just all red. And gonna pull them over. And that center peg, like not center, sort of off center, but still in the middle of the loom, if you know what I mean. It's getting really crowded, and I just don't like that peg whenever I'm doing things like this. And I lost a band there, and I almost got it, but then it fell off again. So I am going to get it back, and just, yes, like that. Okay. So if it had been lost, it wouldn't have been a big deal. I just would have pulled it back through. And if it had been lost for good, then I probably would have just pulled it all out and gotten a different band and tried to pull it through. And if that didn't even work, then I would have just left it, because that's what the other band's for. There are always two. Okay, so now we're going to start putting yellow bands on, which is going to be his stomach. So we're going to put them in the front of him, which is to the left. And we're just going to do one row of just nothingness and that one spot of yellow bands. So pulling everything over. At some point it's going to become a little bit more difficult because his head's going to be sticking through my loom so much. So you can get a nice profile of him. So now we're going to put the arms on, and they're just going to go on the sides like the usual side bands would, except we're going to make sure they're sticking out to the sides so that they don't get like stuck in the center or anything. So I'm going to put the yellow bands on, then the other arm, and the 2 back red bands. So 1, 2, and it definitely didn't take me very many red bands to make this. I had to get a new bag of bands at some point, but I hadn't used very many at that point either. Oh, I already told you that, didn't I? But this bag has 600 bands, and I used like maybe 1/8 of it, plus the ones I already had. So pulling everything over, and now we're going to do 2 rows of nothing except for that yellow band in the front. So I've already put one on, and I'm going to skip the next row in the video, so just be aware of that. So I'm going to do this row, and it goes by really slowly. So if you're slow, then this is the place for you. And I feel like my content is sort of stands out from everyone else's, because I don't think anyone's made a bunch of just Pokemon Rainbow Loom stuff before, and that's what I do. So out of focus there, and pushing everything down. Now come back after you do another row, I think. Yeah, so I've done my next row, and I missed a couple bands there, so I'm pulling them back over. And now we're going to put on the tail, I believe. The tail comes before the legs. That I know, because I don't quite remember what I did in what order. He's sticking out there. He's sort of cute from that angle. Charmeleon is definitely not my favorite. I do not like him very much, but I made a Charmander and a Charizard, so I figured I sort of had to. So we're going to take the tail. I like him the way I made him. I don't like his official art, because he just seems sort of too lean, and he doesn't fit in. So I'm going to slide that tail onto the very back, as you probably could have guessed. He doesn't fit in with his counterparts Charmander and Charizard because he's not orange. They're orange and he's red. So just going to do a row. But this time... Okay, so we're not putting the legs on just yet. I was thinking we were going to put the legs on. This time, we're not putting any yellow bands in the front. Because, yeah, oh, never mind. I changed my mind. We are putting yellow bands in the front. Next row, we're not putting any yellow bands in the front. So now we're going to hook everything over. And we have our tail. And I placed the tail higher up than I could have. I could have placed it on the very last row. But I sort of wanted it to be higher up and got my hook stuck there. And as you can see, the center row is falling off. Okay, and one of the rubber bands didn't quite make it on. So I'm just going to be hooking everything over. And the next row is just going to have the legs exactly in the same places as the arms were, with red filling in everything else. So if you're ahead of me, you can go ahead and do that. So yeah, he looks pretty good. That's what he should look like, just in case you were wondering. And now we're going to, and I was having difficulties with the leg, so I paused the video. So there's one leg, there's the other leg. Yeah, those legs were giving me problems. And I really like how it worked out with 3 bands instead of 2, because there's definitely a difference between the arms and the legs. So I'm just going to fill it in with red bands and then pull them over. So we're almost done, don't worry. Almost done. So I missed a band there, got it. So if something doesn't look quite right, just evaluate your situation, see what maybe went wrong, and then try to fix it. So I'm just going to pull everything over there and on the other side, and we're technically done with this part. And now we need to stuff it. So just pushing down all of the pegs, opening him up on the inside. And I got my stuffing. Just going to take a little bit so he's not too fat. I think his width as he was with me doing this was fine, because there's a little bit of stuffing sticking out of him, so I could take some out. And you can't see any through the hole in the head, which is good. So I was just sort of squeezing him up, trying to hide that stuffing as much as possible. You can use anything to stuff your creations. You can use tissues or broken bands or anything really, it doesn't matter. You could use toilet paper if you wanted to. So I'm going to get my 2 bands ready on my finger, and I have a little bit of problems with putting them on the 2 bands, as I always do. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll see in a minute. So we're going to take all of those bands off and put them onto our hook, and as I was saying, the center row was very flimsy, but it worked out. So there he is, he's done. Almost. So I was straightening everything, just making sure it all looks good. Yep, everything looks good from the side. And now I'm going to try to figure out a way to put these on There. So I'm going to stop for a second. Okay, sorry about that. So I just wanted to skip me trying to figure out how to put these on. I eventually just got a highlighter, as you can see, and I put the two bands in between my hook and the highlighter, and then I grabbed all of the bands on my hook except for the two there, and I was about to hook them together, like tie them off, when I realized there were 4 bands on my hook instead of 2, and you only want there to be 2. So I was trying to figure out how to put them on, and I eventually just got my engraving pen, which has a little ballpoint tip, if I can get that. Yes, and I was planning on trying to hook them on with the engraving pen, and it did end up working. Not yet, but it will work. So, yeah, and just make sure, if that happens to you, make sure you're getting 2 left on your hook, and make sure they're the right 2. So I was putting them back on there so I could tie it through. So what you're going to do is sort of twist your hook and pull them through like so. And then you're just going to pull until it's pretty tight, and then you're going to want to hide those 2 bands somewhere. The 2 bands that are left. So I always hide them on the tail. If there's not a tail, I usually just wrap them around the body or pull them through the body itself. And he's done. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make your very own Rainbow Loom Charmeleon. If you liked the video, give it a like, obviously. If you want to see more Rainbow Loom videos in the future, then go ahead and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. And I'll see you next time. And there he is with his buddies. Bye!